Joseph, thank you so much for coming on. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
So hit us with it. What's happening with TikTok? Is TikTok going to be banned? Can people use TikTok? Let's say we're December of 2025. Is TikTok available on our phones or not? What's your perspective?
Yeah. So I have some experience with social media. I worked at Facebook, and I'm building a social media product right now. And I've been following the TikTok drama very closely because I'm also building a music site, and I also made Turntable.fm way back in 2011. It's pretty dramatic, the changes. So in April last year, Congress, everybody was saying that it was an airtight plan that would definitely ban TikTok. And interestingly, they set the deadline to be January 19th of this year, which is the day before potentially a new administration would take effect. That turned out to be the case. Trump is now president, and everything's shifting. Even the biggest reliances, globally are shifting. Uh, Moreover, Trump just this week launched a new set of tariffs against China. So obviously, things are very tenuous there. TikTok can be a bargaining chip on that. So it's really hard to say in the end because it's such a big bargaining chip. No one knows what the tariffs will look like in a month, and this could be used one way or the other to increase or decrease all of that.
And and I guess just a quick disclaimer. You and I, we had a nice conversation before this, and I think both you and I are gonna just take like a bit of like an apolitical stand here and just speak very matter of factly about this is what Trump is doing. So just I guess disclosure in this modern society of heated political divide. Nothing we're saying is necessarily going to be approval of Trump's actions or lack thereof. Just purely like we're just going to have a fact-based conversation of like what's happening, how it relates to TikTok, how it relates to the music industry as a whole. So anyway, let's get that angry internet troll disclaimer out of the way.
I'm trying to predict. It affects my business, so I'm trying to predict what will happen, and it's basically just very hard to predict because what happened. So January 20th, January 19th rolled around, and following the letter of the law, Google Play Store and Apple App Store have banned TikTok and all ByteDance apps actually in the App Store, according to the law. And then ByteDance, of its own accord, decided to ban all users in the US from its app. And so for at least 12 hours, every user who logged in, which is 100 million users, tried it and said, oh my gosh, it's banned, and then made an uproar about it. By the next day, Trump had talked to the CEO of TikTok, who visited the inauguration, and was trying to get it back online. Somehow, I guess there was a convincing that ByteDance allowed their users to back onto the app from the US. However, it was still not allowed into the App Store.
Now,
for a month after that, a few days ago, it is now allowed in the App Store, which is not quite following the letter of the law, most likely. But it's unclear to me what's going to happen next.
Was it the ByteDance CEO or the TikTok CEO that was at the inauguration?
TikTok CEO.
It was TikTok CEO, and they're different. They're different people.
True. Actually, I don't know who the ByteDance CEO is.
Yeah, we'll do a quick little fact check here, but we should zoom out.
It's different people. Liang Rubo is the CEO,
and we should zoom out for a second. And maybe a lot of people don't realize this. Hard to believe if they realize it or not, because it's just like such newsworthy content. But TikTok is owned by ByteDance. Long story short, ByteDance is a Chinese company. They also have like CRM tools. They also have streaming services. It's like a Google like company over in China. They have an AI laboratory. I mean, it's like a wildly successful Chinese company. So anyway, I just wanted to qualify that. So Trump had the TikTok CEO at the inauguration. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't he in the like the backdrop of the inauguration speech? There was like Bezos and Zuck and Elon. Can't remember who else was there.
He was definitely up front and connecting.
That's interesting, right? That's curious. Like what we can stay away from like whether we approve of it or not. Like So at that moment, TikTok is banned. He has the guy like in the backdrop of his inauguration speech. Like, what the hell is going on
Yeah.
there?
So
It's
some
pretty
insider
crazy.
knowledge I've heard about this is basically that in the end, Trump. Okay, so interesting information. So in 2020, after some drama related to the teenagers on TikTok, kind of spamming his campaign with the fake attendance numbers at his stadium, he got pretty angry about that. Like there was kind of an attack from the teenagers in 2020, and he said, TikTok is terrible. It's Chinese controlled. We're going to ban it. So it was actually pretty famously, Trump led the political side of trying to ban it 4 or 5 years ago. He didn't necessarily follow through while he was president, so it didn't end up getting banned. It was stopped by the courts and it didn't follow through. And then Biden didn't pursue that any further until 2020, until last year. This year, Trump very publicly is saying he supports TikTok, and
Mm.
insider baseball is that basically they see it as a potentially very pro-Trump platform in a way that he felt like he had a lot of followers on it, and he felt like it helped his campaign among Gen Z. Um, and then if he can get ByteDance to sell the platform, potentially with the algorithm, then if he sells it to a friend of Trump or to Truth Social or something like that, then that's another major media platform. And as we all know, Elon Musk is a friend of Trump and he owns the X platform. Twitter became X platform. It went from a very liberal platform, Twitter, to a very pro-Trump platform, conservative platform X. And so if they own TikTok, if someone friendly to Trump owns TikTok and it's sold, then that would also support his platform further. And so I think that's part of the benefit of getting that sold if he can.
Yeah, there's all these kind of like things floating around. There's like so much misinformation. So like, let me just kind of ask some questions to you. Um, I had heard that the the um declaration that TikTok was to be banned on January 19th, like it was beyond the president. That like essentially the president couldn't get in the way of it. Was that
Yeah.
accurate or not? Or and
It,
how was he able to get away with it even if that was the case? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in the end, everything relates down. I mean, the letters of the law is set by Congress, and then in the end, it is executed by the executive, which is the president. But then we have separation of powers in the U.S., so in the end, also courts have a say in it, and the courts have an immense amount of power. In particular, in the end, they can arrest people. They can, in this case, would be a fine potentially to Apple and to Google. And so on January 19th, prudently, the Apple and Google banned the downloading of new downloads of the TikTok or even updates of the TikTok and other ByteDance applications in the app stores. But they did that because they knew, according to the law, that they could be prosecuted by the executive branch at any time, and the fees would be $5,000 per user downloading it, which could easily be hundreds of millions of users, could easily be like tens or hundreds of billions of dollars. An insane amount of money, right? Even Apple
Wow.
doesn't have that much money on hand.
So the
So
congressional I want to use the right word. The congressional kind of proclamation is that it's illegal. Now, so Facebook and Apple are essentially not Facebook, Google and Apple are essentially taking a risk by having it on the App Store right now. So presumably there's some sort of backdoor conversations happening, assuring like, hey, yeah, that fine, it's there, it's piling up, but like we're not going to pursue.
backdoor and public. So Pam Bondi is the new attorney general, and she sent a memo to Google and Apple saying that they're not going to enforce the law. Now, and it's risky because, Trump is only going to be president for the next 4 years. The law, as it's written, allows that them to be fined up until the next 5 years. So theoretically, and all the downloads that are happening could be racking up fees and fines that the next administration can pursue them after and have leverage over. They're probably not going to fine them $500 billion,
Sure.
but it's leverage that they could get, some money out of it or get them to do something else. So it's a bit interesting and risky that they did this. The law also provides for, on January 19th, the president may present, I think maybe present to Congress that there's evidence that they're almost done with the deal, and then you can extend that deadline of January 19th by 90 days. So we'd only be 30 days into those 90 days. However, I haven't seen specific examples of which company is close to acquiring it. A deal of this size, which is going to be at least tens of billions of dollars, w- takes months, if not years, to really fully close. So I don't see how you can get it done in 90 days. And so, yeah, it's unclear legally where we are. But theoretically, if they were close to a deal on January 19th, they could extend it 90 days, and then we would know, I guess, in March, end of April, whether this gets sold. But again, according to the law, it's got to get sold. It's ban or divest. It's going to get banned, or it's got to be divested entirely.
If it want so right now it's not banned or divested, so it's inside of a 90-day window right now between April
It
19th and January 19th.
it could be in the 90-day window if they're on the process of selling it. But again, like ByteDance has not assured that they would sell it. It would need approval from CCP.
Wow.
Most recently, the CCP said they wouldn't block a sale. So that is not something they've been saying for the last 9 months. For the last 9 months, ByteDance said they would never sell it for anything. Certainly not without the algorithm. No one thinks they're going to sell it, even now with the algorithm, actually.
So
Some of the numbers,
explain that.
yeah,
You mentioned that to me. So ByteDance is sitting on like what is the like let's go explain this to me like I'm a third grader type question. Like
yeah,
TikTok is built on an idea that if you post
yeah,
one video, uh, and two people view it, it should be showed to a third person. If three people view it, should be showed to a fourth, right? But
yeah.
no one really knows what's really going on with like that. The intellectual property of TikTok is an algorithm, like, right? I'll pass it to you.
They,
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of, I think, intellectual property, right? They have a lot of code in the app itself on the phone, and then they also have code running on their servers that's using AI, whether old AI or new AI, and that part is more hidden. The app you see on the phone is copyable, and Instagram, Reels, and Snapchat, all these companies have copied. Oh, you can make a vertical video with music and then play it, and they've copied it, but yet they don't have the user base. They don't have people using it the same way. They don't have people quite as addicted to that TikTok app as they are to these other platforms. Although they're growing, YouTube Shorts is eating some market share away. Uh, ByteDance may potentially be willing to sell it, but right now it seems like they wouldn't sell the algorithm, which means it knows it basically just knows what video to show you next, such
Yeah.
that you
Why
will
wouldn't they sell the
keep using it.
algorithm? That's like surprising to me that like that's surprising to me. Like I know that algorithm is powerful and valuable, but like it's surprising. Yeah.
Well,
What's yeah.
I mean, ByteDance may want to maximize dollars, but it is well known that China has a strong control over every company in China, and so China as a whole doesn't care that much about getting a few $1 billion in cash. So they would prefer to keep these algorithms secret. That way they can continue to have an advantage over US companies. There may be very, very secret types of thinking and technology in there
Do
that
you
they don't want to release. Yeah.
do you think that they have something that Instagram Reels doesn't have or that X doesn't have? Like, yeah. I guess my understanding of it was like obviously a very addictive product, very sticky. They were the first ones to like really kind of make the reel. Like that's what they got famous for. And you get on there and it's immediately just video, 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 video. Um, but yeah, like outside of like being the first ones to nail that experience and having this momentum with the user base, like yeah, do you suppose they have something like in the secret sauce that, yeah, do you like Facebook? I guess this is Facebook and X at this
I don't
point,
use either of
or
them
YouTube too.
enough
Yeah.
to give you firsthand experience. Is your experience that you think it's the same type of addictiveness in
I don't
social
use
media?
TikTok. I don't use
Okay.
TikTok. Yeah, for frankly, for addictive
Because
reasons.
exactly,
I've
I'm about to
gotten on
say
a
you've
few times,
avoided
and I'm
it
like,
to avoid getting addicted. So
yeah, I find
basically,
Reels to be very
everything I've
addictive,
heard from
though.
people who
Yeah.
use TikTok who tried out Reels is that it just isn't as good, and it may be hard to describe. Is it just purely the algorithm, or is it the types of videos on it? Kind of a lot of the videos are the same, Is it type of community? Is it more strictly teenagers on TikTok and they're just a bit more creative and dedicated? I'm not sure, but certainly it all gets wrapped up into this idea of what the algorithm, like, does it know more about you than you may want it to know, and therefore show you better videos that will get you more excited to learn about makeup or cooking or whatever it's going to show you next.
So that's anecdotally, I've heard the same thing for sure. Do you have any like under the hood, inside baseball kind of uh you can neither confirm or deny type information about like the actual insides of it, or is it more so can we all be really go off as anecdotal? I guess like folks aren't like in the inside
Yeah,
of Facebook and all these are secretive, but worth asking the question.
yeah, I would say there are definitely people who have been working inside an algorithm for a while and say that it's very good. If you want to look at objective metrics, like they just have the market share.
Yeah.
They like it does that comes from potentially that. But it may
Do
be
you have
hard to
those numbers
necessarily prove that.
offhand about like how much how well it's doing versus Reels? And you said YouTube's shorts are getting better, but like yeah, do you know kind of approximate breakdowns of these? And yeah,
Yeah, I don't have that for in the US, but let's see. Yeah, I don't have that offhand, but it's definitely a big majority. YouTube Shorts is a
interesting.
new product. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, I think one some people, I guess, folks don't really quite realize it that this is like highly competitive to Facebook and to X. You know, like you're going to spend your time either on Facebook or X, and hypothetically, if Reels did get banned, so it's or sorry, if TikTok did get banned, excuse me, Instagram would have a lot to benefit from that. So I wonder if Facebook's lobbyists are like pulling streams in the background and our favorite. It would be quite a good day for Facebook if TikTok did in fact get banned. Let alone the
Yes.
prospects of someone like Facebook or X actually buying it at some point.
Yeah, I mean the idea behind banning it is I think seeded from Meta at least 5, 6 years ago, maybe longer.
It
I
was,
mean,
huh?
yeah, yeah, it's well known that they've been like Meta's been lobbying to ban TikTok, or at least have an equal arrangement because Facebook is banned in China, WhatsApp's banned, Instagram's banned, and for equal trade partners, we should be allowed to have an app there just as much as they're allowed to have an app here. I think that is a kind of an interesting argument to make. But because these social networks are all banned there, it makes sense to potentially ban that here. And so that they've been pushing that, but it didn't really, like I said, didn't really start to become a bigger conversation until 2020, and when Trump convinced a lot of Republican senators that they should ban TikTok. But it wasn't enough in 2020. It was only until 2024 last year that there was enough momentum to actually surprisingly get Congress to actually ban it at an overwhelming majority. It was something like over 2/3 of Congress people on both sides wanted to ban it.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. You can't get Congress to agree on anything these days.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it took years, but eventually that they finally bipartisan got that passed
Well, you
and
mentioned this,
tried
and I
to make
want
it as airtight as they could legally. But, deals can always be made.
yeah. So you mentioned something, and I think we should be like fair in our discussion of it and like analysis of it. The whole idea that for those that don't know, you know, companies in China, there is a tremendous amount of government oversight into Chinese-based companies. Like it's different than the U.S. Like the U.S. can meddle in American businesses, but there's a tremendous difference from being an American-based business in your relationship with the U.S. government versus being a Chinese-based business in your relationship with the Chinese government. And like, yes, like there was a weird kind of TikTok moment with Trump in 2020, getting an arena filled. Facebook has the incentive to ban it, maybe for good reason. They're banned in China, but the main criticism that I think cut through all of this noise is, hey, like this is a intelligence asset for China. I mean, it's a device that's on all of our phones. Um, hypothetically, they can access the camera, they can access the microphone. I'm not in the weeds of if you have TikTok on your phone, like, do you have access to the microphone? And like, what's like to me, I think it's like
Those are great questions. Yeah.
it's actually a fair case to make around
Yeah.
like, is this a security issue for the United States? And granted, we're not at war with China yet. God willing, we never are. But at the same time, like these are adversarial countries
Yeah.
and
There's a
major
lot of
world
answers to that.
powers.
I mean, the military a few years ago banned TikTok on all active military phones because partly of that worry. In 2020, there was a viral Reddit post saying TikTok is downloading all this data, has your microphone, camera, all of this, is using all of it, building a profile on you. In a sense, that I mean, partly it's definitely true, but it's also a social network. So every social network does this. Like this is standard. This is like basic. How do you what does it mean to have a social network profile? That means they have data about you, right? They're an ad network. An ad network builds data on you, right? And they're far from the only company using everything they have access to get data on you. If you have an iPhone, the amount of data they can get is quite restricted, right? The iPhone isolates the app a lot, so you can't just access your microphone anytime. We know that it's an OS operating system level thing. On Android, potentially it could be more, but in practice, I don't think it's any more than the iPhone. But it obviously is getting data on you. It knows a few tweets I saw are people saying that they were surprised, or TikToks I saw that said they were surprised that TikTok knew them better than they knew themselves. For example, they tried TikTok and then they showed them videos of same-sex people, and then they got feelings and they realized that they were gay. And that's something they hadn't realized before. And then they were like
Oh
coming
my
out on TikTok
God.
because they didn't realize that.
That refers
And
to people like the algorithms knowing they're pregnant before stuff like that.
yeah, there's stories about that, and I've seen many stories of people saying that they develop their interest in being gay or trans or something like that, and that there's something interesting about that, especially in the context of another app that did get um, prevented from being acquired. So there's an app called Grindr, which is a very popular social network for gay people. It's like Tinder for gay people. Actually, came before Tinder. A company somewhere else, potentially China, was trying to acquire Grindr, and then the U.S. government blocked that because, wow, tons of politicians are secretly on Grindr. Wow, that's a potentially security risk to have a
Whoa.
foreign adversary own this data. And so CFIUS, which is the organization that reviews acquisitions, blocked that acquisition to keep it American. And so there is some kinds of sensitive data that maybe is secret among the population that apps US companies know about that we don't want to be released to other countries. Um, ByteDance sued the US government to try to delay this January 19th block that ended up going through, but they sued them in court, failed, went to the appellate court, that also failed, petitioned the Supreme Court, and did get the last final week review by the Supreme Court to see if they could stop the ban. And the final week of January of January 10th, the Supreme Court justices looked at this and they made these two arguments: that one, they're they're secretly getting all this data from users; it's a major security problem. The second part of the argument is that it's an influence operation. So the U.S.
Mm.
government
I was
and
gonna ask that. There's also
yeah,
propaganda, like feeding.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think different
So
people
let's
have
zoom out there
different.
for a second. The to shine a light on
Those
that
are two
theory again.
arguments. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not saying this is true or not, but like, could China, if there was an adversary in charge of TikTok, is this a beautiful gateway into the minds of 100 million people in America to sway their perspective and to feed them whatever? Like, this is how propaganda works, right? Like, is this a tool for propaganda? Again, like, we're not in a war right now, but these are legitimate concerns. It's just, as you said it, these platforms do influence people. But anyway, keep going, please. Yeah.
And Russia, has been found to be doing psychological operations on Americans using Facebook ads or other things already, and right. And so, who else? What else is China doing that is potentially psychological operations? And yes, if they're on 100 million devices, could they subtly influence the algorithm to show you more videos that are pro Xi Jinping? In fact, a lot of researchers have done analysis of TikTok videos and found that, oh, a disproportionate amount of them are pro CCP, pro China. They also measured people who use TikTok more are more pro China than other people who aren't using it. Is that because they're weighting the algorithm one way? Are they not sharing the algorithm because it is weighing the videos one way, so you to see more propaganda? We don't know. We can't know. They're not sharing that algorithm with us. They're certainly not, and they're not even willing to sell it. So that's some people look at that as suspicious, like, oh, they're willing to shut down this instead of being paid hundreds of billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars for this. That's a bit suspicious. Like, wouldn't anyone want hundreds of billions of dollars for a product that you built? I don't, it's potentially it's China's argument or ByteDance's argument is, well, if we sell this, maybe other countries will ban it. In fact, India banned TikTok just a few years ago, right? For similar
That's a really
reasons.
interesting perspective. Like one thing that I thought was, oh, the algorithm is so good that they don't want to sell it. But then the other more nefarious perspective is like, no, they're doing such they have so many skeletons in the closet, they don't want those to be uncovered. Like not such
Exactly.
a yeah, wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. So, although the counter argument of that is Google was also told to do things by China, I think about 15, 20 years ago, and then instead
Hmm.
of complying with some of those things, Google just pulled out of China. And no, and so was that Google hiding things? Probably not. They just didn't want to provide their algorithms to
Yeah.
China, things like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there, when you have
And you said India did block TikTok?
India blocked TikTok for years, yeah, and then people moved to YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. So other countries
Interesting.
have done it. If US does it, Europe is already talking about banning it, doing a ban or divest law the same way. In which case, maybe TikTok Europe also has to get
Wow.
sold.
Wow.
Maybe a company is going to buy. I've heard of a company making a bid to have to buy the US and the Europe TikTok, right, and make a pan Western European TikTok app. That's something that would make a lot of sense. And if you have a big enough company kind of forming a coalition about that, you could maybe recreate the algorithm or a better algorithm than what TikTok and ByteDance have. But they wouldn't necessarily
Interesting.
want to sell the algorithm because, oh no, what if they take that algorithm and build more apps and start competing directly with TikTok around the world, right? That wouldn't be so good to give away their crown jewels. Yeah.
Right. So we're sitting here February 20 something.
Mhm.
There's apparently a timeline of an hourglass that has tipped over around April. There's speculation that Trump is using this as a bargaining chip with tariffs in China. Like no one has a crystal ball here. And it's an amazingly complex situation. I mean, there's people that want this to happen for the wrong reasons. There's people that have legitimate concerns, very, very, very legitimate concerns. There's like this open question of like, why should TikTok be allowed to run free in America? And like Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, all these things are banned in China. It's an
Right.
amazingly complex situation. And I think it's hard to be the arbiter of all these perspectives and say like what should happen and what's going to happen, but why don't you try and do that? What should happen and what is going to happen? And then also I just want to
Yeah.
say let's get to your story as well because you have like a solution to all of this too, which is what I want to talk about. It's just so juicy, so thanks for like hanging in there with me and like going down this rabbit hole. But anyway, back to you. What should happen? What's going to happen? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you summarized it really well, and we touched on a bunch of topics. But yeah, it's hard for me to say what should happen. I can say what might align with what our company is doing and might be helpful. But
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
could happen? I think it it it's very possible that it could be banned, right? Like we already saw on January 19th, it was banned and it was not allowed in the App Store for a month. It's surprising to me that it's now available in the app stores as of a few days ago, but I think that really, kind of shook the tree to China and ByteDance. Oh, yeah, people will ban it. It will go through all the steps. People will ban it. There will be uproar, but people will just switch to Instagram and YouTube Shorts, right? So they don't necessarily want to lose that. But they, also, whether or not it is doing something super nefarious, China would obviously love to be having a growing social network in the US. Uh, Even if they just kind of use it sometimes to promote Chinese tourism, they would love to have that, right? So they it's not something they necessarily want to sell control over, right? Like no one would want to
Yeah.
sell control over there.
Yeah, you don't have to get too conspiratorial there. It's like, yeah, it's an asset to China, like
Yeah,
extremely. Like, come
yeah,
on, like it's right there in plain sight. Yeah, I mean, there's the far end of the conspiratorial nature, like they're out there, really being intentional with it. But like, yeah, just on a simple level, that's such a brilliant point. It's like this is, yeah, this is minimally small amounts of influence, pro Xi Jinping content. We can see it in plain sight.
yeah,
That's just
yeah.
truth. Yeah.
We already see some of that, and so some people have tweeted rumors that the Chinese military directly has executives overseeing things in TikTok. So
Yeah.
that if
That's the
that were
far end
true,
of the conspiratorial,
yeah, if
yeah.
that's the far end of that. If that's true, I mean, so one thing it's interesting is that when Congress passed the ban last year, they were presented secret evidence that is classified that I don't know about, that only these
Whoa.
congressmen know about, and the CIA knows about. Who knows whether it's even true, right? The CIA also presented evidence that the Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. That obviously wasn't true. So who knows what they know or what they think they know? I don't know. But potentially it could be a benefit for Europe and the US to own this major social media network, just like it's a benefit to China. So in some sense, like what would it be better if the US and China either owned it, or the US and EU either owned it or banned it so much that it shifted economic power to homegrown platforms.
Yeah.
So just from our perspective, that would be better. The slight downside of that is that it's a slight negative. It is a bit of a negative in terms of freedom, right? Like we have
Yeah.
operated in the West as like, I think that's the strongest argument for not doing anything. Like
Yeah,
we allow
that's a
anyone
weird
to.
nuance there. Yeah.
China
Yeah.
owns tons of land. They
Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
skyscrapers, they buy land. It's and like that's fine. Like we allow that. We have rules around it, but we want to encourage everyone to participate in freedom and allow them to do business anywhere. And so why this in particular? And
Yeah,
so
if they just did such a good job of like creating a convincing product, like it's one of these conversations that are like really, really hard to get to the essence. It's almost like free speech, right? And like I won't
yeah, it is free. I
I
mean, that
won't
was their
go.
argument to the Supreme
Yeah.
Court, a free speech argument. But the Supreme Court decides whether it's a constitutional free speech, and they all unanimously decided it's not a free speech concern.
Yeah,
Actually, that was
you
decided.
can't yell fire in a theater or a crowded
Correct.
theater, for instance, or whatever, bomb on an airplane.
Yep.
So not like there's really tough. These are some of the toughest societal questions to ask, and
Yeah.
that is also
Eh,
the compelling reason that I've heard. It's like, look, 100 million Americans say they want it, so that alone is like should be part of the conversation. Um,
yeah, and I think it was definitely considered, but unanimously both more left and right leaning Supreme Court judges looked at this argument, and the TikTok lawyers and lawyers for those creators, for those 100 million creators, actually made arguments directly to the Supreme Court, and they had hours and hours to make arguments, and they all decided no, this isn't a First Amendment issue. It is very specific, narrow. It doesn't
it's
ban the
safety.
speech.
Yeah.
It's a security issue, and they agreed with the argument about the data. I would say that's the weaker argument. I think a lot of people agree that's not such a strong argument, but the potential propaganda issue is a concern,
Mm,
especially given we're obviously not in any kind of hot war with China, but clearly
hmm
I think people know we're in a bit of a cold war. There's a lot of economic tariffs, and Nvidia can't sell chips to China in order to slow down potential things there. It's again, but
But
yeah,
But isn't like 25% of Nvidia chips going to Singapore, and,
Singapore.
and and then we don't know where the chips go after that, right?
Who knows? Yeah, I mean
I
Singapore
heard
is a
Nvidia chips are
common.
making their way to China apparently, but who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to know. It's not
But
clear that they are
point
going to
being is
China.
like
Yeah.
yeah, there's a Cold War. It's quite interesting. What were you saying, Joseph?
Well, it's unclear if they're going because DeepSeek put a lot of engineers putting a lot of time into optimizing algorithms that will run on very old NVIDIA chips. And why
Mm.
would you spend that much effort on something if you actually have the newest chips? So, I mean, that's
Huh.
evidence that they maybe don't actually have the newest chips. So,
Any clue where those ships are going?
well, Singapore is a major. It's like Switzerland. It's like Delaware. It's a major
Mm.
international place where people incorporate their company. So when it says it's going to Singapore, it's a port as well. So
Mm.
it's when things are going to Singapore, it could go to a lot of international companies, which could be China as well, but unclear. But it just means Singapore is a major place that people ship and start companies.
So interesting. And as much as this is like such a juicy topic and goes into the like beneath the veil of the deep state and potentially into the UFO realm and all this like satisfying stuff,
Wait,
like I
what's
feel
the
like
UFO connection to
I don't
TikTok?
know. I just threw that out there.
I didn't hear that
It's like they were given, secret evidence. It's like it's got to be related to UFOs. I was totally joking, half joking, I guess. Maybe I
one.
know something that I can't reveal here.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, so interestingly, also, I mean, it's like, okay, so they can ban any app from ByteDance or any app potentially, but does that mean they can ban anything? Like, can they ban BYD cars? BYD is an electric car that China's manufacturing now. It's super cheap, half the price of Teslas. Wow. Why don't they sell them in the US? They're in Greece, they're in Europe. BYD is an amazing electric car that's super cheap. Why not sell them here? Could they, or should they sell them here? Should they be banned as well? Like, is there the similar, I mean, cars have microphones and send data back to China. Like, they're similar to an app, but even more so. Like, are we, it's like, how far do we go? Like, and are we,
Right. Like if
are
the
we,
dominoes all tip over, like what where and then it's the same question too around like, if ByteDance gets sorry, if TikTok gets banned, then it's essentially a proclamation that Facebook is okay to do what they're doing in collecting all this data.
collecting all that data? Yeah.
However, that can be taken away from them. And who's to say what company, I get that. I get the slippery slope argument. Long story short, like it,
Yeah, like why can't Trump or the Republican Party pass a law saying that Mark Zuckerberg has to sell Facebook to Truth Social? Like why, what is the limit there, right? And
right.
can
Because
the
if you make
Supreme
the
Court
stance
allow
that it's
that?
a free, we have a free government or sorry, free country, and therefore, ByteDance should be allowed, or we make this exception and carve it out. It's complex. It's complex. I mean, one of the just to kind of transition out of the rabbit hole a little bit. One of the reasons why we were talking, it's just kind of obvious. It's like, well, I'm in the music business, and why are we going this deep about TikTok? Well, TikTok has transformed the music industry deeply.
Yep.
I mean,
Yes.
from artists emerging on TikTok and selling out concerts, sometimes not selling out concerts, sometimes creating careers overnight to folks advertising on TikTok. I mean, it's changed the music industry unquestionably. So, a lot of my listeners are going to be wondering, like they're advertising on TikTok quite a lot, so is that going to be an option 3 months from now? Should I keep investing into this? Like what's going to happen? But, you also, you founded Turntable FM and I'd love to hear your story and what was Turntable FM for the listeners, and what are you doing with Hangout? And like, let's get into your story. Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2011, I had an idea to make a way for people to share music with each other in a way that lets people get to know each other more by sharing full track music. And I had the idea from sharing music videos with a significant other who was long distance. And I realized you can make a product that really focuses on socializing with music. And so Turntable.fm was born, created, found, like launched, and went super viral. Fortunately, it wasn't launched in the right way, didn't have the music licensing, the deals that make it totally legal back in the day in 2011. So the labels came in, really shut down 75% of traffic overnight, internationally, all this stuff, and then completely died. In
I,
2020,
I
I
was on
realized,
Turntable.fm, by the way. It was an amazing product experience for sure.
awesome.
And I missed it when it got shut down. Like it was sad. No question.
Millions of people used it within a couple of months and almost universally amazing experience, and people still remember it to this day. And because of that, that memory is why I was like, wait, maybe I should restart this in 2020. And I looked around and there was nothing like it. It's totally unique product ahead of its time, and I realized I needed to bring something like it back. So I went to the labels and they were excited. still took 4 years to get all the licenses to get everything set up, but finally we launched January 19th, actually the day that TikTok uh, was banned, and got a lot of people, got a lot of interest actually that week because of the TikTok ban as well. And we just made a whole new way for you to share music, and it has a different kind of feel from Facebook and TikTok. It's totally different, but in terms of allowing people to spend time getting to know new music, it's the best way to discover music because we're not even using AI algorithms. Actually, we use HI, human intelligence,
I love that.
and
HI.
that's
Nice.
that's the best way to discover music, even today. We have the best AI ever, and still not as good as a human telling you, "Hey, I know you. I know what you would like," or even strangers saying, like, "Hey, I got I got a vibe for you. Try this," and they can get to know you a lot better than any unfeeling robot or algorithm.
I
And
love
so
that.
we it's a great place for fans to do music discovery, and it's a great way for artists to start promoting their music in totally new ways. Whether TikTok gets banned or not, it's still a whole new kind of platform, and we see a lot of excitement from it. Empire of the Sun just last week did an event on our platform promoting a new album. Umi has been doing stuff every couple Mondays. Greta Van Fleet, Sophie Tucker. We've had a lot of amazing big shows. Cage the Elephant, Girl in Red, do events on our platform and really enjoy it. The intimate interaction experience we get from creating a small hangout, listening to music, full tracks with friends, and really diving deep to that experience.
Mm. What's the product experience like? If I were to get on there today, how does it work?
A super short way of describing it is it's like a group chat with a jukebox. It's
I
a
love
group
that.
chat with live music sharing. You DJ, it's like you're passing the aux between people taking turns. You pick music, but it's as easy as a drag and drop. So I call it drag and drop DJing. It's still a really fun experience. You can kind of feel like you're on stage. If you want, you can import your playlist. We partner with Apple Music and Spotify, so you can import your playlist from there as well. And it's everything anyone's ever wanted. I mean, we've been building this for 4 years. So we've built every feature anyone has wanted as well. People can upload mashups, all of that to interact and share with fans. If you're a music producer, you can actually make music, drag and drop a WAV file, and actually try it out on
Mm.
your friend or your producer and see if they like it. And if they do, then you can keep working on it, iterate more and more. People really, really love that you can finally have a group chat with this live music component.
So the record label shut down Turntable FM, is my understanding, right? Or like essentially did, but they're cooperating with Hangout. Like what happened there?
That just launched the wrong way, so it
Mm.
didn't have a business model. I mean, the other thing to remember in 2011, Spotify didn't exist. There was
Totally.
no business model
Yeah.
for music. It was a low point. Like music was dying. It was really sad. Lots of people were being laid off. There was no revenue coming in from online sales. But then, soon after, Spotify proved, okay, some people will pay for subscriptions. And now hundreds of millions of people pay every single month for a Spotify subscription. It's the biggest business online, along with Netflix. People pay for subscriptions today. So it was too early. There's didn't these business models didn't exist.
Yeah, I just checked it. It launched in the US July of 2011. I can't believe it
Yep.
was I can't believe it was that late. Shocking. Like Spotify wasn't around in 2011. So just like
In
a
the
lot of
US. Yep.
pirating back then, or like YouTube,
Hmm.
SoundCloud, I guess was what was going on.
Yeah, it's hard to
We were
people
were we
forget
like buying
Spotify
CDs
didn't
in
always
2008?
exist. It's a
Yeah,
new
what the
thing.
heck? Man, I guess
People
Napster
used
was what,
Groove Shark.
2007?
Groove
Yeah,
Shark was a popular thing. Do you remember that?
I do. I do.
Napster. Since 1999, everyone started shifting to Napster, and that was totally illegal and really sad to decimate the music industry. And the music industry didn't offer us legal solo streaming option. There was no way to be alone streaming music legally. You couldn't pay
Mhm.
until in the US until 2011.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. Do you think Napster it's said that I'm double clicking on you saying that it was sad that Napster decimated the music industry, which I don't disagree with. Do you think that it needed to happen, even though it was as disruptive as it was? And I'm just kind of curious to hear your perspective on the arc of Napster. what happened to online sales, eventually Spotify emerging and leading to this new kind of modern state that we're in now. Yeah.
Uh, More money is being brought to the music industry with streaming now than ever before in
Mm,
1999, right? So we're now past the low point, and now we're bigger than ever. So I mean, that's good, and it's an industry that's growing by double digits percentages, even though it's already so big. That's very enviable by many big industries. So it's good that we're big now. It's good that we're growing. Did we need to go through years of lawsuits, like suing grandma, suing college students? Did we need to like go through that kind of pain of like losing a fire, layoffs and all of that? Doesn't seem so necessary, but we definitely needed to do a transition to digital. That's definitely needed to happen. Did it have to go through this like what is it, 12-year process of pain? I don't not clear really. I
yeah.
don't think so. MP3 was invented not long before Napster started. That clearly was a new medium, but the music industry does adopt new mediums, right? There was the vinyl, then there was the 8-track,
Hmm.
the tape cassette, the CD, and the music industry was making a ton of money off the CD and the previous formats. But yeah, I guess they were a bit slow on adopting streaming. They should have done it
Yeah.
earlier, I think. Instead, we had to like kind of rebuild from scratch.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
and
wonder
that,
if that was, if there was a different version of a Spotify emerging in 1999 versus like a Napster, or it's kind of counterfactual to go back and replay these things, but it's, really, I get the point that it's like eventually it had to happen. And I think it's good to know that more money is going, to the music industry than ever before. I also think it democratized things
yeah.
in quite a different way. And you
I
needed
mean, there were other things like Rhapsody that tried to do the streaming
mm,
thing, but it just didn't have the right formula and user interface that made it as successful as Spotify. Yeah.
yeah, and I also think the streaming world carved the path for the Billie Eilishes to pop up, folks that are
Mhm.
like making stuff in their bedroom and making music in their
Like
bedroom.
YouTube,
And what's that?
YouTube, you're saying YouTube opened it up or
Streaming just in general. Yeah.
any streaming? Okay, okay.
Yeah, as opposed to the old model of like certain artists were like anointed by the record labels, and then all this like, you know, uh
Radio would make
right, like
kings.
years of research and or years of A&R would go into developing these artists and then getting them ready for it. And then it was just much more controlled by a handful of people. And there's probably an argument too to say that not as much artist development happens, and
Yeah,
that I don't know. That's kind of a curious question. I don't know if you've like thought about that at all. I'd imagine you just instead of a record label now kind of going through all this artist development, like artists now just have the tools to develop themselves. And when you have and you just open up to the creator economy to much more people, like the cream still has an ability to rise to the top, and you don't need as much, development from like the record labels. And if there's just far more creators, like there's going to be artists that emerge that are just like ready to go. They're making, Billie Eilish level stuff in their parents' bedroom before any development. But anyway, it is
you're
kind of
seeing
curious
some
to
of that, but
see.
a lot of these baby bands are finding they don't, their expertise isn't marketing or marketing themselves, and they don't know how to do it, and they don't necessarily have the tools to do it. And maybe TikTok is some way to do it, but they don't even know necessarily how to do that the best. And we're trying to provide Hangout as a more organic way of doing that, where you don't have
I
to
love that.
cheat an algorithm to try to get your music promoted, but you just need to connect one-on-one with individuals, the same way people used to when they played, house bands in real life. You just need Hangouts where people can actually one-on-one start to connect. It's not necessarily about beating an algorithm; it's about just connecting.
And maybe your perspective is that the AI algorithms are still good. It's not that you want to see those go away, but having a platform that's focused on HI, human intelligence, is good to sit next to these kind of more like algorithm driven
Yeah.
companies.
That will always exist, and solo streaming will always exist. People will always want to listen to their Justin Bieber alone without anyone finding out what they're listening to that. And that people want that, or they're studying alone. But some fraction of your time through the day is has always been, when we used to hang out more in person, has always been with music. And even if we spend some of that time online, we still want some of that to be with other people listening to the same music. radio has gone down in popularity. And the nice thing about radio is at least everyone was hearing the same thing at the same time, even if you weren't in the same room. And we kind of are losing that, right? And internet radio is missing the interactivity that you would expect from the internet. And so Turntable and Hangout really solve that, really brings the natural interactivity that you'd expect to music.
Where you at in the life cycle of the business? I know you launched in January 19th. Like how did you raise money to get this off the ground, and how big's your team, and what's yeah.
Yeah, raised money from Founders Fund. Founders Fund is arguably the top VC firm. They invested early in Facebook and
Hmm.
Spotify. We're kind of like a Spotify and Facebook mixed together, and so they see the vision. And we've raised a seed from them, and we just launched. We're growing very well. We're making some revenue from that, and we will do a Series A, big Series A round probably next year.
Awesome. How does the platform make money?
We have two business models. One is freemium subscription. So we don't have ads, no ads ever. It's a freemium subscription, similar to Spotify. Most people are free. Some people pay a subscription. And the second business model is virtual goods. So we have gamified elements like avatars and like visuals and
Cool.
cosmetics. And just like Fortnite, makes billions of dollars selling
Yeah.
these visuals, we will sell them as well. And that cosmetics avatar store is not coming out till next quarter, but that's another big revenue stream.
Is it do you work with like the Oculus Rift or anything like that? Can you like hang out in digital? I remember like Turntable FM, there was like the digital DJ and stuff. Like have you tapped into any kind of AR stuff or VR and metaverse?
Yeah, we're focused on 2D right now, and it works in Apple Vision Pro as well, and
Cool.
definitely on the roadmap to have AR, VR, 3D, all this stuff. Like everyone's even in 2011 was telling me that it should be VR. So definitely we'll have
Yeah.
that eventually.
How much are you thinking about like the live music industry? Like obviously like kind of connecting the dots from the Spotify era. I think it's good to hear that more money is going and flowing into the music industry, but with that being said, I think like the live industry benefited from like more and more artists realized that they had to play live, they had to tour, and like the model kind of got reversed. Like, you know, where do you see the live music industry heading? And like, do you have like is a part of your model? Does it have any of like live in mind? Yeah.
Yes, live is, I think, super important. The thing about our platform is we're not based on ads. So remember, we're competing with, Meta, Instagram, and they're all ads based. We're not ads, which means that we don't want to have you stuck in front of a computer 24 hours a day, like Meta does. We are happy if you just use us a little bit, make some friends, find some great music, and then go out and see them live and hang
I
out with
love
those
that.
people live.
I
Right.
love
So we're
that.
going to have, as we get bigger, we're going to have, the LA hip hop room, and then people will meet each other there and then go to those concerts when they come through town and then meet each other. And we're happy with that because we're not based on eyeballs and seconds and ads and all that stuff. Again, unlike other social media, which is trying to create conflict and fighting and division, we are a platform that's focused on connection and unity and harmony. And our business model is aligned with the user and with that. And that's why we're so innovative.
I'm seeing like a kind of like a boiler room type experience. Like, do you think that the fans will do like the hangout live, um, hip hop room at a venue, or is that something that y'all will actually take a part in organizing? And have
Yeah,
you
well, I
thought
mean, we're
that
doing
thought
some
that
of that.
out?
Or, I mean, we're helping handhold Empire of the Sun, these people to set it up. But the thing is, our tools are so easy. We're simpler than Instagram, right? So think of us as like the Instagram or the Reddit for music. Yes, we will totally help users set up these boiler room type events and connect them to live events. And one thing we want to do is like a pre-fest and post-fest. So imagine a major music festival lets you hang out with the people who are going to the
Yeah,
festival beforehand, and you
I
hear the
love.
actual
Oh,
music,
cool.
the high quality that's going to play, and you get so amped for it, and you buy more tickets and buy more merch, and then you go to the event and you are fully immersed live in that and enjoy it. And then after the event, in the afterglow, you also hang out on Hangout and then reminisce and post photos from how much of a great experience you had, and play the music, which triggers all those memories again of every single thing that you did there. That's the vision of how we want to integrate with live and partner with these festivals. And again, it's so simple. It's
Music
very
venues too could
self-serve.
have their own like hangout space, you know, like let me go hang out at, Mohawk, like
Yes.
in the digital realm, like while I'm working. Like, do you think, yeah, would that be a
Yes.
part of it? Yeah.
Totally. Exactly.
Oh,
So
I love
connecting
that.
each physical space to a real space, yeah, to digital space. And that just helps people again really connect. We're all about people connecting in real life as well. We're not about people spending all day staring at their phones.
I love that. I love that. Well, I was a huge fan of Turntable FM. I do remember when it like got, shut down. And I was sad. It's good to hear this popping back up. I love what you're doing. I love that you're going against the grain with human intelligence. Everything that you
Yeah.
just said about, yeah. If you're on the computer, you might as well have a cool environment to share music and hang out with your friends. But we want you to get out into the real world, and doing something with like the live music industry in mind is super cool. So I'm wishing you the best of luck. Like, thank you for coming on and sense making like the unbelievable mess that this whole TikTok situation is. I think, I appreciated some of the sense making, even though, in these like crazy situations, you want there to be more clarity than there actually is. And I think the truth is there's just not clarity yet. But that in and of
No.
itself is cathartic to just get confirmation on that. And we will see what happens with that. So, thank you for doing your best to provide clarity on a situation that's just not clear. And yeah, it was really fun to get to know you. And again, really wishing you the best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be on, Matt. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. All right.